At the Riverside Courthouse, an 8-year-old girl interrupted her own father's trial for a serious crime and made an impossible promise to the judge. "If you free my father, I will make you walk again." Everyone burst into laughter until the judge stood up alone. The Riverside Courthouse was packed that Tuesday morning. People whispered in the rows, waiting for the hearing to begin. Right in front, a little 8-year-old girl swung her legs that didn't even touch the floor. Aria Mitchell wore a slightly faded blue dress and sneakers that had seen better days. Her bright, lively eyes remained fixed on her father, sitting at the defendant's table. Daniel Mitchell was a tall, lean man with callous hands from working as a mechanic. He looked at his daughter, trying to smile, but worry was written all over his face. The charges against him were serious. Armed robbery at a pharmacy. The evidence seemed irrefutable. Surveillance camera footage, witnesses who saw him at the scene, phone records indicate his presence in the neighborhood at the time of the crime. "Dad didn't do it," Aria whispered to herself, clenching her small hands. Judge Marcus Hollow entered the courtroom in his wheelchair. At 52 years old, he was known for his strictness and sense of justice. A car accident had changed his life, but never shook his determination to deliver justice. He took his place behind his desk and reviewed the documents in front of him. "The court examines the case of State versus Daniel Mitchell," announced the judge in a firm voice. "Mr. Mitchell, the jury has found you guilty of armed robbery. Before I pronounce the sentence, do you wish to say anything?" Daniel stood up slowly. "Your Honor, I swear on my daughter's life that I did not commit this crime. I was at home with her. I would never do such a thing. She's all I have in the world." "The evidence says otherwise, Mr. Mitchell," replied the judge. "This court will." Suddenly, a small, clear, and confident voice cut through the silence. "Wait!" Everyone turned around. Aria had stood up and was walking toward the judge. The defense attorney tried to stop her, but she was faster. "Young lady, you cannot interrupt the hearing," said the judge, though with a note of gentleness in his voice. Aria stopped right in front of him and looked him straight in the eyes. "My name is Aria Mitchell. That man over there is my father, and he didn't do anything wrong. If you free him, I will make you walk again." The courtroom erupted in laughter. Some found it touching. Others shook their heads, thinking it was just a child's fantasy. The prosecutor smiled smugly, but Judge Marcus didn't laugh. He continued to stare at this brave little girl who wouldn't look away. And then something strange happened. Marcus felt a tingling in his legs, a sensation he hadn't experienced in 15 years. For a moment, his muscles seemed to respond. He leaned forward, supported himself on the armrest, and managed to stand up. He remained standing for a few seconds before falling back into his wheelchair, stunned and bewildered. Total silence fell over the courtroom. "I need a break," said the judge, still in shock. "The hearing is suspended until tomorrow." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. This little girl had something special about her. What if she was right about her father? The next day, he did something he had never done in 25 years of his career. He undertook his own investigation. He found Aria at the community shelter where she lived. "I knew you would come," she said upon seeing him. "How did you know?" "Because you're a good man, and good men always seek the truth." Aria led him to the corner of a room she shared with other girls. From under the mattress, she pulled out a small USB drive. "My mother, before she died, had hidden a camera in our apartment. She was afraid of certain dangerous people who lived in the building. The day they say my father did this horrible thing, he was with me at home. Everything is recorded here." The judge took the USB drive with a trembling hand. That evening, he watched the video. It showed Daniel at the exact time of the crime, helping his daughter with homework and preparing dinner. "My God," Marcus whispered, "this man is innocent." The next morning, he made a decision that would change everything. He was going to reopen the case. Marcus had never worked with a child before, but Aria wasn't like other children. She possessed amazing intelligence and determination that reminded him of his own youth, and the days that followed. They formed an unlikely duo. "Judge Marcus, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Why are you always so serious?" "My mother said that smiling is good for the heart." Marcus stopped, No one had ever spoken to him like this. Well, that's how judges must be, serious and impartial. Impartial means what? It means we shouldn't take sides. We must listen to both sides. I understand, but you can be impartial and smile at the same time, right? For the first time in years, Marcus sketched a real smile. They spent hours examining every document, every photo, every testimony. It was Aria who noticed the first anomaly. Judge Marcus, look at this. This police report was written before this other document with the evidence. How did he know these things before they happened? Marcus leaned in to see more closely. She was right. Officer Edward Barnes's report had been recorded before the official evidence collection. It was very strange. Aria, you have eagle eyes, he said, impressed. They began investigating Officer Barnes's background. What they discovered was not reassuring. Several complaints have been filed against him over the years: witness coercion, mysteriously disappeared evidence, and in at least 2 cases, suspicions of fabricating false evidence. This man is bad. Aria said simply, it looks like it, but we need to prove it. Marcus knew that reopening the case would be risky. The next day, veteran prosecutor Marcus Thompson appeared in his office. Marcus, I heard you're thinking of reopening the Mitchell case. It's madness. Marcus, there's new evidence. Evidence? An amateur video and the testimony of an 8-year-old girl? You're going to destroy your career for this. What if he's innocent? What if a good man is in prison because of a corrupt cop? Even if it's true, nobody will believe you. You have an impeccable reputation. Don't waste it. Marcus remained silent, his eyes fixed on a window. In the courthouse yard, Aria was playing with other children, but often looked up at his window. Marcus, I'd rather lose my career than go to bed knowing I didn't do what's right. Are you sure about this? I've never been more sure in my life. That afternoon, Marcus officially filed a request to reopen the case. When he announced it to Aria, she jumped for joy. I knew you would do the right thing. How did you know? Because when you look at me, your eyes shine like my father's when he talks about doing what's right. Marcus felt his heart tighten. This little girl was changing something in him, something he had buried long ago. She was bringing his humanity to the surface. They were working late at his house, preparing all the documents for the new hearing. Aria had insisted on helping, and he discovered she was very good at organizing files and spotting important details. Judge Marcus, do you have something to eat here? I'm hungry, said Aria, rubbing her eyes. It was already past 9 p.m. Of course, I'll heat up a pizza in the microwave. Do you like pizza? I like anything. At the shelter, there's not always enough for everyone. Marcus felt his heart clench. This child had lived through so much and yet kept hope and good humor. They were in the kitchen when a strange noise was heard at the back of the house. It sounded like someone was trying to force the lock. What was that? Whispered Aria. I don't know. Stay close to me, replied Marcus, trying to maneuver his wheelchair toward the phone. Suddenly, the back door opened violently. A tall, robust man entered. It was Officer Edward Barnes, armed. His eyes were red with anger. I thought you were going to drop this little comedy, he said, pointing his weapon at them. Officer Barnes, get out of my house immediately, ordered Marcus, trying to keep his voice steady. You're not going to give me orders, Judge. You and your little brat are going to stop snooping around. You're a bad policeman, said Aria without showing fear. My father didn't do anything, and you know it. Shut up, kid. You don't understand life. Your father is just a good-for-nothing who deserves prison. Don't talk about my father like that, cried Aria. Barnes took a step toward her, but Marcus moved his wheelchair forward to intervene. Leave her alone. If you have a problem, it's with me. You're both my problem. This stupid video is going to destroy my career. I have a family, bills to pay. I'm not going to let you ruin me. So why did you do it? Why accuse an innocent man? Barnes burst into bitter laughter. Because we needed to close the case quickly. My chief was putting pressure on me. Daniel was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was easy to make him look guilty. But he's a little girl, cried Aria, tears in her eyes. And I have children too. Do you think I would feel sorry for another black father in prison? Anger overwhelmed Aria. Without thinking, she threw herself at Barnes's legs, making him stumble. The weapon flew across the kitchen and hit the wall. Furious, Barnes grabbed Aria by the arm and slammed her violently against the wall. "Dirty brat. Now you're going to see what happens to those who mess with me." He picked up his weapon and pointed it at them. Marcus desperately tried to reach Aria, but his wheelchair couldn't reach where she was. "Please, don't hurt her," pleaded Marcus. "She's just a child who's ruining my life." Barnes was about to shoot when sirens broke the silence of the night. Blue and red lights illuminated the windows. "Police, open the door." "How do they know?" screamed Barnes, panicked. "I called when I heard you forcing the door," replied a voice through the window. It was Mr. Wilson, Marcus's neighbor, phone in hand. The front door opened and several police officers entered the house, weapons drawn. "Drop your weapon and hands on your head," ordered the sergeant. Barnes looked around, understanding he had no escape. He dropped his weapon and raised his hands. "Are you two okay?" asked the sergeant, approaching Marcus and Aria. "We're fine," replied Marcus, finally managing to reach Aria to hold her in his arms. The little girl was trembling, but when she looked up at him, she smiled. "We did it, Judge Marcus. Now everyone will know the truth." The day of the new hearing arrived, and the courthouse was packed. Officer Barnes's arrest had made headlines throughout the city, and many wanted to know what happened to Daniel Mitchell's case. When Marcus entered the courtroom, everyone was speechless. He was walking with the help of a cane, moving slowly but with determination. The tingling in his legs had returned since the night Aria had defended him, and gradually he was regaining the use of his muscles. "Good morning, everyone," said Marcus, positioning himself behind the desk. "This court is convened to re-examine the case of State versus Daniel Mitchell." Daniel was at the defendant's table, but this time a glimmer of hope shone in his eyes. Aria, sitting in the front row, wore the same blue dress but sported a confident smile. This case was reopened due to new evidence that appeared after the first trial. Evidence that shows not only the defendant's innocence, but also the unacceptable conduct of a police officer. The prosecutor, different from the one in the first hearing, stood up. "Your Honor, the state recognizes the validity of this new evidence and drops all charges against Mr. Mitchell." A murmur of approval ran through the room. "Furthermore," continued Marcus, "this court has received elements showing that Officer Edward Barnes falsified evidence and wrote false reports, not only in this case, but in several others over the years. This evidence has been transmitted to the competent authorities." Marcus fixed his gaze on Daniel. "Mr. Mitchell, on behalf of the judicial system, I apologize for what you and your daughter have endured. No innocent man should live such a nightmare." With tears in his eyes, Daniel stood up. "Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for believing in my little girl and for seeking the truth. The one who deserves your thanks is your daughter. She never stopped fighting for your innocence." Marcus raised his gavel. "This court declares Daniel Mitchell completely innocent of all charges. The case is closed." The room erupted in applause. Aria ran into her father's arms, who lifted her up and spun her around. "We did it, Dad. We did it. Yes, my princess, we did it." Father and daughter approached Marcus, who was descending from the stand with the help of his cane. "Judge Marcus," said Aria, "you promised to let me finish the miracle." "What do you mean? You're already walking, but you still need the cane. Can I try again?" Marcus smiled and nodded. Aria placed her small hands on his legs and closed her eyes for a few moments. "There," she said, stepping back. Marcus felt his legs stronger than ever. Slowly, he let go of the cane. It didn't fall. He stood alone, without support that a deep silence invaded the room. Then applause and tears erupted at the same time. "How did you do it?" he asked, moved. "It's not me, it's us. When good people unite to do what's right, incredible things happen." 3 weeks later, Marcus visited Daniel and Aria in their modest home. They had found housing thanks to an association touched by their story. "Judge Marcus," exclaimed Aria upon seeing him, running to embrace him. "Hello, little one. How are you doing?" "We're doing well. Dad got his job back at the garage, and I'm starting a new school next week." Marcus handed a bouquet of flowers to Aria. "These are for your mother's grave." I wanted to pay tribute to the woman who raised such a brave and generous little girl. Thank you, Judge Marcus. Mom would have been very happy to know you. Daniel approached and shook his hand. Judge, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done. You don't have to thank me. You taught me that justice isn't just about law and regulations. It's about people and doing what's right even when it's difficult. When Marcus left, he knew his life had changed forever. He was no longer that cold and distant magistrate. He had become a man who understood that true justice comes from the heart, and that sometimes miracles happen when you least expect them, thanks to the most unlikely people. And every time he passed by the courthouse, he remembered the words of the brave little girl. Free my father, and I will make you walk again. She had kept her promise, and he had kept his. Sometimes justice isn't about evidence, but about the courage to believe in what no one else can see. Aria showed that even the smallest heart can have the strength to change a destiny. And do you believe that miracles can happen when you least expect them?